The three most bet teams in college basketball today: UConn minus 9.5.
Loser.
Kentucky minus 5.5.
Loser.
UNC minus 7.5.
Loser.
All three. Most bet games, most bet spreads, all straight L's.
Nuts.
The books just get richer.
They always
I made
do.
a lot of money on the Super Bowl, and I gave it back, and
that's how it goes.
I am taking Alabama, and I'm laying the points. I like Florida a lot. I like conference championship tournament Florida. I should put it that way. Like, that's a good team. They went out. Georgia's not that great. I think a lot of people are getting a little lost and thinking that's a big win for Florida. It's a good win, but it's not a win that I'm sitting here going, oh, this team's built all the momentum. Alabama, on the other hand, is a quick team, a fast-paced team. That's been the undoing for Florida this year. Teams that can play you on the fast break, that can get up and down the floor and take advantage of rebounds. I think Alabama does that. And I do think that Alabama's kind of got a different mentality than what we just talked about. Nate Oates is the kind of coach, I think, that has these guys locked in game after game. You know, there's coaches like, I think, Brad Brownell at Clemson. Sorry to harp on them. It's who I cover. What do you want? That kind of don't have that locked in on every individual game. It's a big picture image to him. I don't feel that way about Nate Oates. Nate Oates seems like a guy who's going to have that team locked down. I think Alabama getting whooped a couple of times down the stretch by Florida, for instance. It's a revenge game. They're going to want to make a statement tonight. I'm going to lay the points with the Crimson Tide.
Kentucky, though, is interesting. If Kentucky wins the SEC, can we agree they're jumping up to at least a 2 seed? Feels like a 2 seed.
I think so.
It feels like it.
Because Marquette could drop.
Yep.
Baylor could drop. Those are two teams that are looked at as potential 2 seeds right now. Again, This stuff's not finalized. We know that. But I feel like you could see one of those, especially without Tyler Kolek. Marquette drops down to the 3 spot. Kentucky wins the SEC. They move up to number 2. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the scenarios where that happens.
Yeah, I mean, Creighton will probably not be a 2 anymore.
No.
So that's the thing, right? Is some of these other 3s like Duke and Creighton obviously can't play anymore.
Yeah.
And then if Baylor loses tonight, then and Kentucky wins, then obviously they'll get potentially 2 more opportunities. So yeah, I mean, with the loss of Creighton and Duke, and just the fact that Kentucky has like the feel of a 2 seed, right?
They do.
Everybody talks about how talented this team is, and they are. They're extremely talented, and they're so fun to watch, and they're just such a good shooting team. I mean, they're excellent offensive team. I do think there's a chance that Kentucky is a 2 seed. I don't think they're dropping to a 4, even with the loss today. I think they're in as a 3, and then I think their ceiling is a 2 if they win the SEC tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that.
1 second left. We need Ohio State to intercept the pass.
There you go.
And
That's
knock down a 3. Oh, he intercepted it.
If that goes
oh my God, go in. Oh my God. Did I not come this close to calling what just happened?
Wow, interception.
Are you kidding me? Ohio State intercepted it 3/4 of the court away, half court 3 to tie the game.
Oh my God.
Are you effing kidding me? It was that close to keeping this thing alive. 30-1 to win the damn tournament.
That was almost like Virginia last year against Furman when the guy just chucked it up.
I can't believe it.
That was insane.
I really thought that was actually going in.
I was calling for them
Absolute
to do that
miracle.
too. I'm like, just chuck it down the court. That's what he did, and oh my God, it almost backfired.
Oh my God.
Rough.
Wow,
That's
what a
dead.
sweat.
You know what? They covered, and I don't even care. I don't even care.
62-62, Pitt, North Carolina now. I'm actually very, very curious of how this game ends, given what it means for Pitt. North Carolina obviously doesn't need it.
Oh, it wouldn't have counted. The Ohio State shot wouldn't have counted. Yeah, it was in his arms.
Okay.
That's nuts. All right, on to the next game.
I'm going to regroup and I'm going to move on. I'm going to regroup and I'm going to move on, guys, because this is what we do. They want us to suffer on the day.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I've watched the World Poker Finals at 4 a.m. coming in after a night of having a lot of cocktails. So yeah, pushing all the chips in. It's usually when you do that and you don't get the hand on the flop, then you're now in a situation where you're going home. And you know, I work with a guy here at 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Gavin Dawson, and he said something very interesting. He said essentially Jerry Jones has just breathed his last football breath. is what he's done. Now, Jerry in the past have told us about, hey, I'll write this check, I'll do this, I'll do that. This is the last that we will ever really hear from Jerry Jones on, on this thing to whether to believe him. There's a lot of people that did buy into the, all in. Stephen then comes out and says, his son, Stephen Jones, comes out and says, well, Jerry's always in, and, the expectations, you're absolutely right. But Jerry, his idea of keeping his team relevant, keeping his team in the news, when you cover this team post game, there's 25 people around Jerry Jones post game, and there's 3 guys listening to Mike McCarthy talk about the post game. That's what happens here. Jerry Jones, we're always interested in what he says, but I think Gavin's absolutely right. I think Jerry has breathed his last credible football breath. That people now, it's, everything you say doesn't matter to us. Everything, you try and sell us this, you try and sell us that. And people are upset. People are upset by the fact that the way that they operate here, but it's how they feel comfortable with. I went on a long rant and on our station one time about they don't want change. They want to be able to do things this way. They want to win, but they want to win on their terms. They're not interested. We all see what Howie Roseman's doing in Philadelphia. We're seeing what Dan Quinn and the new staff's doing there with the Commanders. We see all this, but that's not the way that the Cowboys operate. But what they do is they draft very well. Now, last year it wasn't as good a draft. We'll see what happens with Mozzie Smith. We'll see what happens with Luke Schoonmaker. We'll see what happens with Overshown coming back from injury. But they have now put themselves at a point where they have really no flexibility in their draft. They lost a lot of depth, and now all of a sudden they're going to have to draft potentially a tackle, a center, a running back, an edge, a defensive tackle. There's no flexibility in their draft, and that's how they drafted CeeDee Lamb. Everybody had them drafting an edge that year in that draft, and they didn't. They drafted CeeDee Lamb was the best player on their board, and they took him, and it worked out for them. They don't have that flexibility now. They have Will McClay, that staff. They are going to have to hit on these picks because, again, they lost most of their depth, and now they're starting to have to replace some starters. We'll see what happens with Tyler Smith at left guard. Now, I believe that if they get a tackle in the first round, Tyler Smith stays at left guard. If they don't get a tackle they like, then maybe that Tyler Smith now moves, TJ Bass goes to guard, and then they draft a center. So a lot is kind of hinging on how this draft, but they're very fortunate that it's a deep draft at tackle. There's centers that they can grab. There's some running backs in the middle of the draft I think would be a really good fit for them. So at least they could come out that way, but they don't have the flexibility to take in the best player. It's now going to be about taking every need that they have, and they have a lot of them.